Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a book from the Law Society Publishing, a very important book, one that actually is, I think, of great help both to solicitors and those barristers involved in public access work. The title of the book is Enforcement and Debt Recovery. It's a guide to the new law, now in a second edition. It's been written by three people, and I hope I pronounce the names correctly. Peter Levaggi, David Marsden and Peter Mooney. It's part of the Legislation Guides series of the Law Society, and my wife Elizabeth and I have looked at the book and we've given it the title for our review. The long-awaited reforms have now arrived. They are brilliantly explained here in this guide to the new law, and that's exactly what we've got here. Now let me just go through the book itself and show you what it is. There it is. It's a paperback. It's the front, the side and then the back. It tells you the content and a little bit about the authors. The book runs to just under 500 pages. There's the index at the back there. An important book, as I say. You've got a number of appendices. Appendix E there is on Protection from Eviction Act 1977. Again, Taking Control of Goods National Standards 2014, Appendix D. Appendix C, which I shall get to, is Taking Control of Goods. Appendix B is further regulations on taking control of goods. And Appendix A is the Tribunals, Courts and Enforcement Act 2007 extracts. And then you get into the content of the book itself. The appendix starts quite a long way in, so all of that section of the book there, it's not shaded or anything, but that section is all the appendices for the book itself. And then what you've got is the actual chapter headings themselves. Debt management schemes, for instance, the last chapter, chapter 23. Actual paragraph numbering, as you can see, which is very helpful. If we go into the book itself, there's no footnoting or anything, but for instance, these are charging orders. We're always very used to probably charging orders, a very basic form of enforcement, and a paragraph numbering is extremely useful throughout. Procedure for registering a charging order, it just tells you that. There are other professional books available on that, but it's useful, I think, for many people. It'd be useful to know where we are now with the current law. These are the publications from Law Society there, and this is the actual front of the book here by the three authors. Then there's the content itself. There's no preface, so there's not a lot that they want to say about this book, so I'm going to say it for them, really. And there are the various parts as we run through: enforcement against property, debt management and relief, enforcement against third parties, taking control of goods and so forth. It's a controversial area. There's some details about the authors, tables of contents, cases rather there. Again, then statutes and so forth, statutory instruments. And then you get the introduction itself. This is the 2007 Act, which was sent in 2007. I'm recording this in 2015, which gives you an idea of how long things have taken to move. For instance, just opening it up, obtaining information about the debtor. Very important. You've got to know about the people you're dealing with. Enforcement agents and warrants of control and so forth. Now, there's a lot in this. In Magna Carta here, it's quite important because of the views set out in Magna Carta, for instance, about the roles of sheriffs, bailiffs and so forth. It's a controversial area. It's a popular area on television. You get the bailiffs are coming, or the sheriffs are coming, or whatever it's called, and you see, you really do see some very unfortunate things happening. And certainly I, in my practice, have had a number of matters involving dealing with bailiffs, both in terms of suing them for their behaviour, and also sheriffs as well, for the way in which they behave and what they actually do. Because the bottom line on all of this is not the order you get in court, it's the enforcement of it. And that's where the problem is. So this is what we say about the book, because that's where I start off. The three authors, Peter Levaggi, David Marsden and Peter Mooney have produced a most useful statement on the new rules concerning the enforcement of court orders and general debt recovery. For unfortunately, to many of our clients, the recovery and enforcement areas of legal activity remains a complete mystery to them, because they assume that those subject to court orders will carry out the terms of the orders, and then they don't. So what happens then? That's where the problem starts. I mean, obviously the most sensible thing is you have to get a specific date. For instance, if it's a court order involving money, you have to have a specific date, normally a time, 4 p.m, a date when the money is actually physically to be transferred and paid. And when that doesn't happen, this is when other methods come in. The enforcement area has for decades been a problem. It will continue to be a problem, frankly, because you don't have the same powers that you have. The court order gives you the order, and then when they don't do something, you've then got to go back to court with more expense, more time, more hassle to try to sort it all out. And for many people, that is exactly what they have intended all the way along the line. And some of them are the people who are the wealthy ones. Normally the rather more poverty-stricken debtors cough up quite quickly. The fact of the matter is that the people who are wealthy are the ones who have held onto the money as long as possible and actually extricate the maximum unpleasantness, frankly, out of any situation. And I'm afraid that is what happens in reality. We know about that as lawyers, and we know where the balance comes in. That's one of the reasons why with, say, a Tomlin order, when you're doing a consent order of some sort, you will try to make sure you've got a proper timetable in your schedule all the way through, so you know where you are. Now, the law concerning enforcement and debt recovery includes many of the oldest laws on our statute books in England and Wales. Not surprising, bearing in mind that land and property itself is the basis, very much the basis of the common law. But on the 6th of April 2014, long-awaited reforms, the most significant for hundreds of years, came into force, unifying and radically reforming the law governing enforcement agents. This is where the interest comes out. This is the second edition of what is both a popular and established book. It's of great importance to practitioners because highly respected experts with a wealth of experience in the enforcement industry have come together here to set out the most up-to-date and comprehensive review of the new law of enforcement for us. And the content includes the following information. This is the basis of what's in the book. The new standards and certification of enforcement agents, a complete review of the Taking Control of Goods Regulations 2013, the abolition of distress for rent, an important change there, the introduction of commercial rent arrears recovery, CRAR, and the criminalisation of squatting. And there are books, in fact, on these particular areas as well that are now coming in, and they're also extremely helpful with the overall debate. The authors combine this authoritative review and analysis of the law with insights into the practical impact and application of the rules and regulations, uniquely illustrated by numerous examples and practice points, which are of great help to the legal advisor. The book also includes an appendix providing access to the relevant law and regulations in a single essential volume for enforcement agents, property lawyers, commercial landlords, surveyors and insolvency practitioners. In fact, anybody advising in this area. We do have a growth area now in paralegals in this area, so I think it's very relevant to them. They're not fully qualified, they are people who know the system. This book explains it, I think, in the fairest way you possibly can. The Law Society continued to give us as practitioners, that's both barristers and solicitors, some of the most up-to-date and accurate statements of law and practice, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm very thankful too to be able to receive these expert guides, tech toolkits and legislation. This is a legislation guide itself, and all the other materials they produce to make our work a great deal easier when when advising clients in conference. And certainly this sort of information, if you've got it at your fingertips, will make the conference flow a lot better, because remember, the clients quite often get very nervous and quite emotional sometimes as well. And some of them, I've had a number, especially in landlord and tenant matters, where they really do need the money from the debtor, and they've got real worries because they themselves are really in a very vulnerable position. So you can see the balancing act that we have, especially if we have an economic downturn. So it's a big thank you then to the Law Society and to the three authors, Peter Levaggi, David Marsden and Peter Mooney, for what they have given us with the new legislation guide for our practice. So thank you very much. Quick look at it again. There's the front, nice purple cover. You can see the long-awaited reforms mentioned here coming in 2014. Then you can see a little bit about the authors on the back. Just opening it up in the middle. Attachment of earnings orders. Now, some of you will probably remember the leaflets that used to be available in the courts all those years ago now. They're still available to a certain extent, but I think a book of this magnitude, again, it explains quite easily, because you don't have counter services the way you used to have in the courts. This book will actually give you a lot of advice which you can read about rather than trying to go and speak to people and force them to by taking control of goods. Very controversial area this, but again, I think with the pressure that Parliament was under to change things, we've actually come a long way very quickly. Just finally, reminding you about the appendices there, and then there is, of course, I think, a very useful index. This is partly statutory based, so there's a lot of information. Thank you to everybody concerned. This is an excellent book. Very grateful to have it, and every single firm and in fact chamber should have a copy of this, because it is the fundamental problem when the debtor doesn't pay up. Thank you to all concerned anyway. Bye-bye.